The most painful lesson about love is not that people leave you. It is that they don't always mean to stay the way you thought they would. And one day you realize you were never loved incorrectly. You were just loved differently than you imagined. It usually doesn't begin with heartbreak. It begins with hope. A message that made your heart pause. A laugh that felt like home. A silence that didn't feel empty, because someone was there on the other side of it. And slowly, without noticing, you start building a story in your mind where this person becomes permanent. Not because they promised it loudly, but because your mind quietly decided it for them. But here's what nobody warns you about. Love doesn't end only when someone walks away. Sometimes it ends while they are still standing right next to you. That is the strange part. The body is present, but something invisible has already left. And when that realization arrives, it doesn't break you immediately. It confuses you first. You start replaying conversations like hidden clues in a mystery you were never meant to solve. You start asking questions that have no clean answers. Was it real? Was it ever the same for them? Or did you just love louder, deeper, and longer than they ever did? And that is where everything begins to shift. Because the truth is, love is not always shared equally. It is experienced differently inside two different minds. Carl Jung once hinted at something unsettling, that we do not fall in love with people as they are, but with the image we project onto them. And when reality slowly peels that projection away, we don't lose the person, we lose the illusion. But the question that changes everything is this. If what you loved was partly an illusion, then what exactly are you grieving? And the answer to that question is where this story truly begins. Because by the end of this video, you will understand something most people never recover from the same way again. That love doesn't just reveal who others are. It reveals how deeply you were willing to believe in something that was never fully there. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. But to understand this fully, you have to go back to where it all starts. The moment love begins to quietly turn into attachment without you noticing. There is a moment in almost every love story that seems too ordinary to remember. Yet it decides everything that follows. A simple conversation, a late-night message, a shared secret, a feeling that someone finally understands you without asking too many questions. And in that moment, something subtle happens inside the human mind. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like connection. But here's what most people never realize. The brain is not falling in love with the person. It is falling in love with relief. Relief from loneliness. Relief from emotional silence. Relief from being unseen. And that relief becomes dangerous because it starts building a story faster than reality can catch up. You don't just see them anymore. You begin to interpret them. A delayed reply becomes, they are busy, not distant. Cold tone becomes, they are tired, not changing. A small act of kindness becomes proof they care deeply. And slowly, without noticing, you stop observing reality and start defending your imagination. This is where attachment is born, not in grand gestures, but in small reinterpretations of truth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote about how the mind has the power to turn anything into suffering or peace, depending on interpretation. But what he didn't say directly is this: the mind can also turn uncertainty into fantasy when it cannot tolerate emotional emptiness. And so we create something comforting, a version of love that feels stable, predictable, safe. But real human beings are not stable. They shift, they evolve, they withdraw, they return. And sometimes they don't match the story we wrote for them anymore. What happened next always feels shocking. Even though the signs were always there, the person you thought was consistent begins to feel unfamiliar. Their energy changes. Their presence feels different. Not because they transformed overnight, but because your illusion finally ran out of evidence. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think betrayal is the cause of pain, but often it is the collapse of expectation. Let's look at something subtle. Have you ever noticed how the same person can feel like two different individuals at different times in your memory? One version makes you smile, the other makes your chest tighten. But they are not two people. They are one person filtered through two emotional states: hope and disappointment. Nietzsche once suggested that humans cannot handle reality as it is, so they constantly reinterpret it through desire. And love is the strongest form of that reinterpretation. But here's the strange part. Even when reality begins to contradict the story, we resist accepting it. We try harder, we give more, we over-explain, we over-understand, because accepting the truth would mean accepting that the story we built was never fully mutual. And that realization hurts more than loneliness itself. And that is why love, in its earliest form, is not about two people meeting equally. It is about one mind constructing meaning and hoping the other mind matches it. But what happens when it doesn't? That is where chapter 2 begins. And what you are about to understand next will challenge everything you think you know about emotional connection. Because sometimes the most painful part of love is not loss. It is presence without emotional return. There is a kind of heartbreak that doesn't have an ending. No breakup, no final message, no dramatic exit. Just a slow emotional withdrawal while everything on the surface still looks intact. They still reply. They still meet you. They still exist in your life. But something essential has shifted, and you can feel it without being able to prove it. This is the most confusing form of love because it creates psychological instability. Your mind keeps searching for evidence that nothing is wrong, while your body keeps reacting as if something already ended. At first, you dismiss it. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe they are distracted. Maybe life is heavy right now. But here's what most people never realize. Emotional absence rarely announces itself. It dissolves, and what makes it unbearable is the inconsistency. One day, warmth returns for a moment. The next day, it disappears again. That inconsistency creates addiction-like attachment patterns in the brain. Because uncertainty is more psychologically gripping than clarity, Buddha spoke indirectly about this when he described attachment as the root of suffering. Not because love is wrong, but because craving stability in something unstable creates internal conflict. And this is exactly what happens here. You are no longer in a relationship. You are in a guessing game, and you start changing yourself without noticing. You become more careful with words, more sensitive to tone, more aware of timing. You start monitoring emotional weather like a scientist, trying to predict a storm that never fully arrives. But the most painful shift is internal. You begin to blame yourself for the distance. What did I do wrong? What changed in me? And slowly, your identity starts bending to fit the silence. But here's the truth. Nobody wants to accept. Sometimes people don't leave you because of something you did. They leave emotionally because they changed internally. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than reality," and nowhere is that more visible than in this phase of love, where the mind invents explanations to avoid the unbearable truth. Someone can still be there and no longer be emotionally available. And this is where attachment becomes suffering, because now you are holding on to presence, not connection, and presence alone is not love, it is just proximity. What happened next is the most dangerous part of this process, because the mind starts negotiating with reality. If I try harder, maybe they will return. If I understand them more deeply, maybe things will go back. If I become better, maybe I'll become enough again. But this is not love anymore. It is emotional survival disguised as effort. And the longer this continues, the more you disconnect from your own emotional truth. Because deep down, You already know something has ended, but you are still waiting for permission to accept it, and that permission never comes from them. It only comes when you stop confusing memory with reality, and that is where chapter 3 begins, where love stops being something you feel from someone else and becomes something you must finally confront within yourself. There is a moment in every long emotional story where clarity arrives quietly, not as a revelation, but as exhaustion. You stop arguing with reality, you stop decoding messages, you stop analyzing silence. And in that stillness, something uncomfortable becomes visible. You were more invested than they were, not in love, but in meaning. And that distinction changes everything. Because love feels mutual when both people are equally emotionally invested in the illusion of continuity. But when one begins to detach internally, the imbalance becomes undeniable. At first, this realization feels like betrayal, but then it becomes something deeper: grief. Not for the person, but for the version of reality you believed in. Jung might say, this is the collapse of projection. The mind finally withdrawing the image it placed onto another human being and seeing them as they are, not as they were imagined. And that moment is devastating because it redefines the entire past. Suddenly, memories don't feel warm anymore. They feel different. You start noticing things you ignored, emotional gaps, subtle disinterest, moments where you were more present than they ever were. And this is where most people break internally, not because love ended, but because understanding finally arrived too late to protect them. And yet, there is something strangely freeing hidden inside this pain, because once illusion collapses, truth becomes visible. And truth, no matter how painful, is stable. Nietzsche once implied that truth destroys comfort before it builds strength. And this is exactly that moment. You begin to see that love was never supposed to be a perfect balance, but it was supposed to feel alive on both sides, and if it doesn't, then something essential is missing. But here's the twist. Even after seeing all of this clearly, most people still go back, not because they are weak, but because the brain confuses familiarity with safety, and emotional memory is stronger than logical understanding. This is why people repeat the same patterns even after knowing the outcome, because understanding something mentally is not the same as releasing it emotionally. And this is where transformation begins, not in knowing the truth, but in finally stopping the pursuit of what no longer returns what you give. And that brings us to the final chapter, where the pain stops being about them and starts becoming about you, not in a destructive way, but in the most honest way possible. There comes a point where silence no longer hurts the same way, not because you healed, but because you finally stopped expecting it to change, and that is the beginning of emotional freedom. But freedom rarely feels like relief at first. It feels like emptiness, because your mind is no longer occupied with hope, and hope, even when painful, is still a form of emotional structure. Without it, everything feels unfamiliar. This is where many people mistake healing for loss. But what is actually happening is deeper. You are detaching from a version of yourself that only existed inside that relationship, a version that was always waiting, always hoping, always adjusting. Viktor Frankl once wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space where freedom exists. And in that space, you realize something profound. You are not only reacting to love, you were defining yourself through it. And now that definition is dissolving. What remains is something quieter, more grounded, more honest. You begin to notice that your worth was never supposed to be validated through someone else's consistency, and that realization hurts. But it also stabilizes you, because for the first time, you are no longer dependent on emotional unpredictability to feel alive. You start seeing relationships differently. You stop romanticizing confusion. You stop calling inconsistency depth. And slowly, your emotional nervous system begins to reset. But here's the final truth most people never reach. The pain was never just about them. It was about the gap between expectation and reality. And once that gap closes, either through acceptance or detachment, suffering loses its grip. Marcus Aurelius might have called this alignment with reality, not resisting what is, not forcing what isn't, just seeing clearly, and clarity, even when painful, is peace in disguise. Because now you understand something irreversible. Love is not supposed to complete you, it is supposed to reveal you, and what it revealed was not weakness. It was capacity. Your capacity to feel deeply, to attach meaning, to hope beyond evidence, to believe in emotional possibility even when reality was uncertain. That is not a flaw, but without awareness, it becomes suffering. And now, something shifts. You no longer chase closure from people who already left emotionally. You stop reopening wounds to feel temporary connection. You begin choosing peace over intensity, and that is where transformation completes its cycle. The most painful lesson about love is not that people change. It is that you can love someone deeply and still never experience the same depth from them in return. And the human mind struggles to accept this because it wants symmetry, it wants balance, it wants emotional justice. But reality is not designed to match emotional desire. It simply is. And when you finally understand this, something inside you quiets. Not because love becomes less important, but because illusion loses its power. You stop searching for meaning in silence that was never meant to speak. You stop revisiting memories, hoping they will explain the present. And slowly, you begin to understand what Stoic philosophers were pointing toward all along. Peace does not come from receiving what you want. It comes from no longer needing what hurts you. And in that realization, love transforms again, not as attachment, not as expectation, but as experience, something you lived, something you learned from, something that shaped you, but does not control you anymore. And maybe that is the final truth nobody warns you about. Not all love stories are meant to stay. Some are meant to teach you how to leave them, without losing yourself in the process. And when you finally reach that place, you don't feel bitterness, you feel something quieter, understanding. And in that understanding, you realize the deepest love was never for them. It was for the version of you that survived them.